Welcome to the Daily Cash Flow with Peter Siegel. My name's George Robson. Today, Peter and I talk about Amazon getting into the real estate game, what it takes to build a real estate mindset. We talk about autonomous cars and the future of the rental car industry and a bunch of other stuff. And for those playing along at home, before the camera started rolling, we asked Peter to try and use 3 words and work them in throughout the episode, just to make things interesting. We asked him to use fiduciary 3 times, exemplary twice, and kerfuffle once. So keep your ear out and we'll tally the points at the end. So what are we waiting for? Let's check it out.
Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
So Peter, as we go through these videos, just give your honest reactions.
Honest reactions.
Yeah, you can talk either to the screen or to the camera, however you feel. And if you want me to pause anything, feel free. Yeah. And we'll go from there. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, cool. Sounds
Thanks,
good.
George.
All right, here we go. So this is Laird Hamilton, 2021.
Laird Hamilton. Look at that. So that's Laird on a foil, which I know a little bit about because in 2021 I'm now a foiler. So I am aspiring to be, I've always aspired to be like Laird. He's like anybody else at the top of their game, he's at the top of his game. He's an incredible athlete. He's envelope pushing. And just watching this is getting my blood pumping. It's such a great feeling. You know, Mark Zuckerberg had a video made of him on a foil, and it went viral last month, and everybody saw Mark Zuckerberg with a face full of white sunscreen.
That's
on a foil,
the American
pumping
flag, right?
through, yeah. And so foiling became a little bit out in the open in the mainstream when Zuckerberg posted that. This is far more satisfying to me. No matter who it is and in what context, if they're the best at what they do, I aspire to be that.
100%.
And I could watch that video all day.
Yeah. All right, ready for the second one?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
I don't know what I'm looking at here, man. Ostriches with sunglasses?
Told my wife, if I ever die, well, I will. When I die, you sell 2 things immediately, the same week. You sell the jet and you sell the condo, and you keep everything else. Don't sell 1 apartment building. Don't sell anything, because it'll take care of you, it'll take care of the kids, it'll take care of our church and our charities for hundreds of years. My real estate, the real estate that I pick, I look at it and I say, that piece of real estate right there, Woodway Square, Houston, Texas, will be in business longer than Facebook.
Yeah. So a few things about that.
Yeah.
Number one, he's making a few points. He's supporting multifamily real estate assets as the premier asset class to invest into. He's saying this building will be in business longer than Facebook. I mean, I get that, I understand it, and I agree with it. He's saying, when I die, get rid of the jet, get rid of the condo, keep all the investment real estate. I don't know, Grant. You know, when I die, my wife's gonna keep the jet, she's gonna keep the condo from the life insurance proceeds and our other availability of net worth and assets and liquidity that we'll have. And she's gonna keep the investment real estate as well. So, Grant, I think your point is you don't need your house. You can use cash flow to pay for a rental house, and maybe you don't need your jet because you're not going to be around flying around the globe to generate the same kind of business, and your wife and kids can just stay put in a new home somewhere and not have a jet. So I think maybe that's where you're going with that, but listen, we're keeping the jet, we're keeping the house, and we're going to keep the real estate as well. And Grant, look into it, man. Come on.
Amazing. All right, and then there's the last one, which you know, because we did it. This is our first video that we ever did, and I was curious as to your thoughts on this.
Professional operator.
Yeah, I look like
expert.
shit.
Let me tell you that
It's
making
not your
investments
fault.
in cash flowing real estate is closer
I look
and easier
like I'm
than you
reading
think.
off the script, which I am, which
Hey
bums
everybody,
me out.
it's Peter Siegel. Thanks for being here with me today at Siegel Cap.
But look, you
And
got to
today
start
we're
somewhere.
gonna talk
With
about my favorite
multifamily
stuff,
in life, with
investing in real
marketing, with
estate,
social media.
business,
You got to start
entrepreneurship.
somewhere.
And I'm going to share with you some of the things that you're going to want
This
to
is
do
where I started,
in order
so
to create
I always
financial
talk
freedom
about
and the
my first
generational
deal that I
wealth
did
you're
in
seeking for you and your
multifamily. This
family.
was my first
So
deal that
my
I did in
business is investing
social
in
media
and
production.
developing. Our
Even more
country
so.
is in a long-term renter-nation mode.
Completely
and
true.
Demand for apartment living and apartment rentals is very high, and it's likely going to continue to strengthen.
Absolutely
over the
going to continue to
foreseeable future.
strengthen.
Recent economic trends and outlook are extremely
Let's see.
favorable to owning income-producing real estate.
Still
I'm
are.
talking about everything from the current interest rate environment.
Man, I like being right,
shifting
George, you know?
demographics and consumer behaviors, population
Look, a
growth,
lot of these things, all these
homeownership
things that I
trends,
said
and
back
the
then are
impact of
still
technology
appropriate
in our daily
now.
lives.
Yeah.
And true
And
now.
I'm inviting
Yeah.
you to follow me here at Siegel Cap to learn more about what we
Cool.
do at Siegel Capital and how you can get started in
But
making
I gotta
your
tell
own
you,
investments
man,
in great cash
That is
flowing
a
real estate.
handsome devil right there.
We're also going to talk about steps that you can take
Wonderful.
today to
All right.
improve your business game.
This has been fun. Any last thoughts on our first reaction series?
Yeah, can you take me back to that Laird video so I can watch that?
Sure.
Oh, I love that. That I could watch all day.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Should we head to the table?
Let's go to the table, man. Ready to do this?
I'm ready to do this. It's been a while, Peter.
It's been a while.
It's been a little while.
An appropriate break to take because I have been trying to enjoy my summer. And you've been hopefully doing a little bit of the same.
Yeah. Trying to enjoy, get a little work done, all
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah. So the table is kind of where it's our kind of traditional setup, similar to how we've talked in the past.
Yep.
I have some topics that I want to bring up and see your thoughts on, but is there
Please.
anything else, like anything that you want to bring up first? Is there anything that's been on your mind that you...
What's been on my mind?
And we can come back to that too, but I was just curious. I wanted to start off just to...
The continued proliferation of increased regulation has been on my mind. Regulation in the housing industry has been on my mind. I try not to think about it too much because it bothers me, but it's been on my mind.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to mention was the
Really?
Dallas-Fort Worth kind of multifamily boom. And wondering, do you think a lot of that is as a result of regulation in other areas and that...
Well, why do you mention Dallas-Fort Worth specifically? Because all of Texas, I think, is having a multifamily boom. Austin's off the charts.
Yeah.
Austin's actually the #1 multifamily growth market in the country, even over Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yeah.
From everything that I know. So I'm curious why you focused on
That
Dallas-Fort
was just a
Worth.
headline that I saw. So
I think Texas in general is open for business. They're a business-friendly state, low on heavy regulations. And look, Tesla moving to Texas.
Right.
Lexus, Toyota, abandoned the California hub, moved to Texas. You've got Austin turning into a tech hub. You've got culture that's growing and booming down in Texas where perhaps it was a little thin in decades past.
Yeah.
A lot of people are moving to Texas. It's, I don't know, to cliche, it's freer for those that care about that. It's lower in taxes. I think everyone cares about that. It's easier living. Definitely everyone cares about that.
Yeah.
But as far as why Texas is booming and Dallas-Fort Worth is booming and Austin is booming, it's those reasons. There's a constant demand of people moving into those states. They're leaving places like New York and California because employers are there. The economic base is growing. It's not just static and stable. It's booming. It's growing. Where there's jobs, there needs to be housing. Where there's housing, new employees will move into that housing product. So that's what places like Texas and Tennessee and Florida are experiencing because you've got a huge amount of job growth, and job growth drives everything. Yeah. So all you have to do is look and see the companies that have left California, for example. They've left other places too and have moved to Texas. And it's easy to see why they're building lots of new housing in all these submarkets across Texas.
Do you think, because you started in New York and now a lot of your properties
I started in New Jersey. I started in Trenton, New Jersey.
You started in New Jersey, okay, yeah.
That's when I was 12 years old.
Right, if you were
So
starting.
if I want to pinpoint a start to anything, and then I had my first deal that I did in Washington, D.C. when I was in college.
Right.
So when you say I started in New York, just want to be clear as to what point in life I was when I started in New York.
Yeah. So technically New Jersey, and then your first deal was in D.C. Do you think, would you start somewhere else if you were starting now? Or do you think a lot of kind of the markets that you chose were based on where you grew up and where you were from? And
I think you start where you start based on where you live.
Okay.
And you got to develop your skills and become an expert first. You got to know how to do it first.
Yeah.
I wouldn't live in New Jersey, grow up in New Jersey like I did, and then choose, Oklahoma as my first place to go invest while I'm living in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work. You have to operate the properties. Although with technology and different solutions that are available today, that they weren't available even just a few years ago, let alone 20 or 30 years ago.
Totally.
Perhaps some of those distances are bridged and gapped a little bit. But I think you gotta start where you live, and you gotta gain your expertise, and you gotta become a pro at a bunch of different stuff. And then once you've tackled all of those balls, I think you gotta come to the realization that you can expand and go outside of your immediate market if you so choose. I always like to stay pretty tight to my immediate markets.
You like to consolidate.
I like to cluster. I like to consolidate. I find it to be more efficient to manage multiple assets that are close by, as opposed to multiple assets that are in San Francisco and Chicago and Texas and Georgia and Pennsylvania and New York and Florida. I mean, that is a lot of guys do that. And when you get to a certain level, a certain amount of units under management, you have to go outside of your market. You have to go outside of your region, and you have to be in other markets, because you're just not going to be able to get the critical mass by continuing to gobble up everything in your own market.
Yeah.
And plus, there's issues of diversification across the asset class. And do you want to have 10,000 units in New York City, or do you want to have 2,000 in New York, 2,000 in Texas, 2,000 in Georgia, 2,000 in Florida, that kind of thing? And once you have that critical mass in each one of those locations, you can leverage property management efficiencies, other economies of scale. I wouldn't recommend having your home base be 2,000 units and then you have like 120 units in Nevada and nothing else, right? That's not enough units. Yeah. You want to have enough units to have critical mass where you can deploy resources, money, people, team members, and have it all work, because all that stuff is expensive and costs money. Yeah. And it costs more money than 120 units would throw off to you.
Have you heard about this kind of foreign investors focusing more on multifamily versus office space? That's something I've been hearing about.
So I've not only heard about foreign investors focusing on multifamily versus office, but I got to tell you, I've heard about everybody focusing on multifamily versus office, regardless of what country they happen to live in. Here's where we are right now. The world is starved for yield. The world of investors is starved for assets. That's why you see foreign investors buying U.S. multifamily. That's why you see hedge funds and private equity funds buying portfolios of thousands of single-family homes. That's why you see the same hedge funds and private equity funds deploying purchasers and strategic snipers out into these single-family home markets in suburbs across America to bid on the same homes that you and I and our families are trying to bid on, because we want to be in a certain school district to have our kid grow up there and we want to live there. They're buying it to own it and then rent it back to us. So we're now competing with permanent capital and long-term capital as consumers. Right now, such high prices for assets everywhere that any place that exhibits the slightest bit of perceived discount, or any asset class that gives off the perception to the investor population worldwide that it hasn't yet been widely discovered, maybe it's been narrowly discovered, but not globally discovered, I think you're going to see the capital and the interest flock there. So, and that's always the case with markets. People don't want to be the last one in. They want to be maybe the second or third one in, sometimes the first. Yeah.
Do you think, as far as why now, do you feel like that's related to COVID? Do you think it's related to technology? Do you think there's multiple factors?
Why now?
Right, yeah.
Because as the economic engine of our world, culture and society churns on, assets that are worth owning become more expensive. And there's no better time to get in to these assets than today, because if you're going to get into them tomorrow, it's only going to be more expensive, number one. Number two, there's so much money right now. Everyone has so much money. I understand that certain individuals might not have a lot of money as consumers, but I'm talking about
the system
has a lot of money. Companies have a lot of money. Investors have a lot of money. Look, in our country alone, last year, $6 trillion was printed. That didn't exist before. All of a sudden, it's here now. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, some of it is being spent by consumers on goods and services. Those dollars that are being spent by consumers on goods and services are going to the companies that provide the goods and services. So these companies are flourishing. Other dollars are being saved. The banks are flush with more cash on their balance sheets right now in these consumer accounts than they've ever had in their lives. And a lot of money's going into chasing assets. Real estate has never been higher because there's so many people and so many dollars chasing so few real estate opportunities. We already know there's a housing shortage in our country. Yeah. So it's no surprise that if you dump $6 trillion on the general populace of America, a portion of that populace is going to go out and seek to purchase housing, and it's only going to continue to limit the supply and drive prices up. That's what we're seeing.
You mentioned shortage of housing. One of the things I wanted to bring up was Amazon has this fund that had recently committed $300 million to 3,000 new affordable homes near public transit. That was the kind of the pitch that they actually delivered that news themselves.
Yeah.
I was curious, you and I talked about a long time ago about
this very thing.
Yeah, about Amazon getting into real estate. So I was wondering your thoughts on this particular form of that.
Amazon gets into everything, number one. Number two, as a long-term strategy, planning and leading the Amazon organization, you have to quickly identify that there is an issue with human resources and keeping and maintaining employees close to where you need them to be to work at your company. So there's a housing shortage in the US. Amazon is growing rapidly and significantly. They need to be able to provide work environments that are attractive, locations that are accessible, and their employees need to get paid attractive salaries, and they need to be able to live nearby and have lifestyles and be able to raise families. And Amazon uniquely is in the position to not only go out into the marketplace and hire employees and pay staff like any other company has to do, but they're uniquely in the position where they can develop housing product and real estate and offer solutions and say, hey, come work for Amazon. We'll pay you this great salary. We'll give you all these benefits, and you can live in any one of these multiple properties that we've built around this hub. And this is where you and your family can live while you're working for our company. And it's smart. It provides a housing solution. It's going to be new, nice stuff, we think. Yeah. And look, if I'm Jeff Bezos, I got a real problem that I need to solve. And that is, how do I continue to attract top talent and retain top talent as we grow and hire hundreds of thousands of people over the course of a couple of years? I mean, it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
People need to find housing. They can't find housing. They're going to say, sorry, Jeff, I can't take the job with you. I got no place to live. We've gone out looking. My wife and I flew down to whatever town, and we've been looking for houses on weekends for the past 4 weeks. We just can't find shit. Bezos is now solving that problem. He's going to provide housing for his own people and solving his own problem. You got to, and it's smart.
How crucial is, you've talked about other kind of factors that go into choosing a market and things that you look for in a healthy market. With public transit, how crucial is that for multifamily in general?
Choosing a market to invest in?
Yeah.
So if I want to invest in multifamily, how crucial is public transportation?
Yeah, because that's kind of what this Amazon deal is about.
It used to be very crucial. It used to be one of the main boxes that we'd have to check off, right? Public transportation, access to roads, buses, and trains, access to culture and entertainment, access to education. Our school system's good. Short commutes, like under a half hour, that kind of thing. Like that was the typical boxes that we'd check off when trying to identify markets in which to invest in. I'm going to throw in there also, because it's on my mind, as I've already told you, municipal environments that are open for business, low on regulation, low on restrictions. You know, you have to look at all that stuff before you invest $1.
Yeah.
You know, now the transportation thing is, I think, modified a little bit. We've seen that the commute to work is no longer a primary feature or as primary a feature as it used to be. So there's work from home components, there's more driverless car components coming. They're not here yet in full force. It's coming, and it's a very real thing. Man, I saw I'll talk about that separately, but there was a great interview I saw with Elon Musk recently that talked about what the driverless car environment looks like. But access to transportation is still a box that I need to check, but perhaps not as critical as it used to be. Look, if you're going to buy multifamily in New York City, everybody knows that you want to have a building that's close to the train stops and the bus stops, so you can market to your tenants, train stop within a block away, because no one wants to walk 5 or 7 blocks in the snowy, rainy, shitty winters and springs to get to a train to then go to work. Like you're not going to get as much rent for that apartment as you are for the one that's on the same block as the train stop. So it's the same thing for any location. You want to have good access to transportation and an ability to get to where you need to go. It's a little different now with the way worker populations' behaviors are changing and commuting is changing.
And last question on this Amazon thing, and then we'll move on. Do you feel like any sense of threat with Amazon coming into the real estate game? Do you feel like this is something to be concerned about, or is it something that's so radically different than what you're doing that it's not a concern?
I've heard, so Amazon's going to get into every business. Yeah. Let me just say that. So whatever industry you're in, whatever job you have, whatever store you work at, whatever skill set you have, Amazon is getting into your business. They just generate so much cash, and they're everywhere. They've got research and development. They've got retail. They've got consumer connection. They've got a real estate presence. They've got a distribution network. They've got it all. So they're getting into every business. I identified a couple of years ago that Amazon was already getting into real estate brokerage, and I saw that coming. Yeah. And I think that that's going to really shake up and change the face of how we buy and sell real estate. We've already seen a little bit of that with Zillow and other online real estate marketing sites where we can go online and see what's listed on the market. We can go online and reach out to a broker. We can go online and see all the available inventory in a certain zip code or geographic area. So Amazon, with its technological capabilities, is surely getting into the brokerage business, among other things. So I've expected that. I've not yet planned for or considered how they're getting into the multifamily business. Except we just talked about how they're building housing for their employees. So that immediately is going to put them in the multifamily business. So they can either build it or they can go buy it. So are they going to become now a purchaser of multifamily properties and compete with me bidding for multifamily apartment buildings? Perhaps. So I better sharpen my pencil and up my gamesmanship, because I don't know who I'm competing against most of the time until it's too late. So if Amazon's going to buy apartment buildings in my market, then I have to pivot and I have to adjust and compete.
If you're not growing, you're dying. Yeah, absolutely. One thing that we talk about quite a bit is mindset and how crucial mindset
every
is.
Day.
And we
think about it every day.
One of our first big videos that went out was the 99%, and how it's mindset that separates a lot of those factors.
It's everything. It's number one. It's the first thing and the last thing.
Yeah. So I was wondering, you talk a lot about having a real estate mindset. What does that mean exactly in terms of having a mindset that is tuned to real estate, tuned to that thing?
When I say you have to have a real estate mindset, I think first you have to have a healthy mindset and a healthy relationship with money, with your money, with money in your life, what it means to you, how you get it, what you do with it when you get it, and how you think about money. You have to have a money and wealth mindset if you're going to be in real estate. If you have an unhealthy mindset with money, you're going to have a tough time, or a surely unsuccessful time in being in the real estate business, because real estate is so much about money, and not just about building your money and your net worth and your generational wealth, which are these buzz phrases that we hear talked a lot about today. Generational wealth, real estate, like pass it to my kids and they'll have generational wealth. It's more than that. It's you're charging money to the populace in exchange for providing housing. You're profiting off of providing housing. In today's world, it's a very controversial topic. It's a very controversial position to be in, to charge money in exchange for providing housing to a family, to an individual. You have to have a healthy mindset to be able to do that and to do it successfully in today's marketplace with all the pressures and comments and trends and cultural trends that are happening, and people's opinions are very prevalent and loud today, louder than ever before. The renter population versus the property owner population. Yeah. So you have to be able to handle that. That takes a thick skin, a thick stomach, and you have to be able to deal with that kind of stuff. But like, you have to have a healthy relationship with money. You have to know that owning real estate is a lot of things. It's, if you do it right, generational wealth. If you do it right, it's profitable, sure, but you also have to operate it. You have to treat people right. It's a people business. We've said that before a lot. It's not just bricks and mortar, it's people. I mean, you have to have all of that stuff really dialed in your mind before you can consider yourself proficient and successful at real estate. There's no way you can be proficient or successful at real estate without having your mind right with money and with people and the world that we live in. It's all tied together. It's more complicated than ever.
Yeah.
And it's a big conversation.
It's interesting that you bring up the healthy standpoint with money first, that it is such a common thing right now to either not want to talk about money, or if we are talking about money, we're making it a negative thing rather than a positive thing.
We've never been taught to talk about money.
Yeah.
That's been a problem with schools, with society, with parents. It's been socially unacceptable to ask someone, how did you become successful? How much do you make? This is what I'd like to make. What can you tell me about how I can get there myself? So few people ask those questions to the right people.
Yeah.
And you need to ask those questions. Look, they don't teach us about money in school. Come on, they don't.
Yeah.
Why not? We have to seek out ways to educate ourselves about money. We have to have a healthy relationship with money. George, how many people do you know or have you heard about that get a little bit of money and just spend it, right? That's like most, I think
Super
it's
common.
most of humanity. Yeah. Most of humanity gets a little bit of money, they spend it. They're good little consumers, they spend it. There's no savings, there's no investing, there's no like planning, there's no long-term horizon.
Well, I might add, it's not just a little money. You have people that win the lottery, or NBA players that get
those lottery stories kill me.
Super salaries, and then they're broke after being retired for 2 seasons.
Those stories crush me.
Yeah.
I hate it, but they happen, and they're real because they don't know. There's no financial education. No one knows what to do with whatever amount of money they have, whether it's millions of dollars or hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
And so when I say you have to have a healthy relationship with money, I'm really talking about knowing what to do with what you have, living within your means, not spending money on stupid stuff that you don't need, that we're conditioned to spend money on in our world because marketing and messaging and branding, and we want to own Gucci, and we want to have Lambos, and we want to have the Rolex and drive the right car and look the right way, which I understand, but you can't do that at the expense of not investing. You can't do that at the expense of not planning for your future. You can't do that. It's just poor decision making. Mm-hmm. Life's about wants and needs. Luxury branded Gucci shit is a want. It's not a need. So if more people can start understanding that kind of thing earlier and making investments sooner, I think we're all going to be better off. Yeah. Certainly the investor, the consumer person who's investing, will be better off.
That's all I had planned to talk about. But one thing I did want to ask you, and we don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, is that since the last time we met, you've been very active on Clubhouse. And I was curious if you had any thoughts about that experience and about kind of what you've been doing there.
So I have been active on the Clubhouse app. I find it fascinating. I find all of social media fascinating. This is a new one for me. So here's what I like about it. I search for connection and commonality day in and day out with people. I search for the ability to share topics that are near and dear to me. So things that I like, that I want to be involved in and talk about and discuss with people, right? Business, real estate, investing, mindset stuff, success stuff, the journey, how do you get there? I want to learn. I love learning, and there's so many ways to learn about a lot of different things now. So here's what I get with Clubhouse. I go onto this app. I can choose the room that I go into. So by virtue of choosing the room and choosing the topic, I'm narrowing my focus into one topic. Today it was Q&A, real estate, tricks for obtaining debt and using your credit to get debt to ultimately buy more assets and build your wealth, right?
Yeah.
I love this stuff, man. If I don't have a Clubhouse to go into and listen to on a drive or on my bike ride or walk in the morning for a couple hours, if I don't expose myself to that, I have little to no opportunity throughout the regular banging and booming of a day to have these conversations, right? Yeah. I show up to work, I'm talking about work stuff. I have dinner with my family. I'm not going to talk about that with them. Right. You know, the days just will go by and I don't have an opportunity to talk about these things that make my heart beat.
Yeah, we don't have daily cash flow every day.
We don't. So I go into Clubhouse. Yeah. I can choose whatever my topic is, and immediately there's a few hundred people there that want to talk about the same thing. Here's what I love about it. Black, white, red, brown, Asian, American, Chinese, Indian, fat, skinny, West Side, East Side. None of it comes up. None of it matters because we're all in the real estate room. We're talking about real estate. We're not talking about white real estate, black real estate. We're talking about real estate. We're all there to make money in real estate. We're all there to learn about getting our minds right, to be real estate investors. And I crave it, man, because it's like the one place for me where none of that other stuff comes into the picture. It's just about the topic, real estate, investing, business, whatever the room is I go into. There's no other criteria or differentiators. We're all in there together. You got newbies asking experts for advice. The experts are talking to experts. Everyone's from all these different places and backgrounds and has different levels of expertise. And we're all sharing and talking about it. And none of this other stuff comes up. And George, I tell you, I love that. You know, when I'm looking for connection, when I'm looking for commonality, I can find it there because I don't find it in my work life. You know, I've been in business doing this for over 30 years. So for me, I know where the divides happen. I experience them all the time. I'm experiencing major divides right now. Yeah. Our world is divisive. Our business can sometimes be divisive. That part bums me out. I go into Clubhouse and I engage in discussions with people in these rooms that are like-minded. I'm very thankful for that because it's hard for me to find that in other parts of my life.
That's beautiful. Cool.
Yeah, I find it to be a beautiful thing.
That's cool. All right, that's all I got. But you did mention Elon Musk. Did you want to talk about that?
Man, I saw this great interview with him. It was a snippet of an interview. Maybe you guys have seen it. So the question was to him, how do you view driverless cars in the future? And hey, Elon, I heard you say that people are going to be able to take their driverless car, drive it themselves to work, hit a button, and then put the car into the rental pool for the day while they're at work.
Wow.
And the car will go out and become an Uber for hire, generating income, and then show back up at work to pick you up and you can drive your car back home. Yeah. I mean, holy shit. So Elon's like, yeah, that's happening. That's already being developed and planned, and I don't know, give it 5 or 10 years. Yeah. So he's already got a time frame for that. It's already in research and development. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's a big thing because now the economics of purchasing a car and owning a car are not only buy the car, insure the car, fill the car up with gas and maintain it. Now it's like drive it when you want to or need to, hit the button, put it into the rental pool. Now you're like in the short-term rental business, right? You can VRBO your car for 8 hours while you're in your office or whatever the hell you're doing. If you're on vacation, you can put it in the rental pool for your long weekend or your week in Disneyland. Yeah. And that car is going to be generating money. It's going to be like auto Ubering. Yeah. And it'll show right back up in your driveway so that when you're back from your vacation, your car's there. And there's going to be rating systems. You're going to have to keep your car clean, and your passengers going to have to keep the car clean and all that stuff. There's going to be cameras, and people will be able to check in and see how the experience is going, and there'll be computerization of the maintenance. I mean, there already is automation and computerization of the maintenance and alerts and sensors that tell you what's needed. But man, that is some crazy, exciting stuff. It's artificial intelligence. It's technology plowing forward. It's the auto industry changing. It's consumer behaviors changing because you now maybe have a different set of math calculations that you're doing before you buy an expensive car.
Right, well, and it creates a whole different identity behind the asset class, because you're viewing, instead of this depreciating asset that you try and keep on for as long as possible, now it's a cash flowing instrument. So
it's a cash, man, So maybe it's not even worth buying a car for some people, because they can just, the driverless car Uber trend will just continue to grow and expand, and people can just get to wherever they need to go without ever owning the car. But if you own the car, to have the option to hit a button and put it in a rental pool for anywhere up to a half a day to full time, I mean, it's crazy.
Coming full circle, the first thing you mentioned was regulation. I think that's where my brain immediately goes, is I wonder, if Hertz and Enterprise will try and have some kind of political repercussions before this happens.
If these companies, I don't know what Hertz and Enterprise did in terms of investing in this technology 5 and 10 years ago, but I remember when driverless car technology was first publicized in the media, that it was made clear that GM, Ford, all the big automakers were making big investments into the space. And so if they're not already invested there, then they're probably going to be left behind.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I want to move on to Q&A.
Let's do it.
All right, sounds good. Well, after a word from our sponsors, who we don't have yet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna put some kind of video here that's like an intermission or a commercial or something. And
our sponsors are our residents.
There you go. So I'll do something like that.
Thank you, residents.
So this is our Q&A segment.
Let's do it.
So this is from Tasha Smilak. She's from TikTok, and she goes, "Hey Peter, been following you on Clubhouse. Thanks for a ton of value so far. I'm 24, based just outside Tampa with no school debt and about $10,000 in savings. I want to get into multifamily, and my goal is to own 100 units by 30. What are some incremental goals that I can set now in order to get me to my bigger goals?"
How much is in savings?
10,000.
So start off with a fourplex, learn how to buy it, learn how to finance it, learn how to operate it, learn how to rent it out, learn how to take out ads on the apartment rental websites that stick out, that are different from all the hundreds and thousands of other ads that are on those same sites. Learn how to stick out, learn how to have a point of difference, learn how to maintain that fourplex in a way that's quality, that's clean, that looks good from the street. You've got good curb appeal. Learn how to take the right photographs of it. You can just use your cell phone for that, but learn how to be a marketer, owner, and operator of multifamily real estate. Live in one of the units, rent out the other 3. When you've added enough value by maintaining, adding landscaping, maintaining, renovating the apartments, by upgrading certain features about the property, installing security cameras, installing automated keypad entry, repaving a parking lot, like doing things that beautify the property and increase the living experience of the resident, you can probably say that you've added value to the property. Go back, might be a year or 2 later, have it reappraised and look to get a cash out refinancing, and continue to own that property, and then go on and do it again, do it again, do it again. We've talked about it before. Buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So Tasha, you're going to go from 4 units to 8 to 20 to 50 to 100 in a matter of time that's not terribly long. Look, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You're not going to have 100 units overnight, but at 24, wouldn't it be great to wake up by the time you're 30, have 100 units in management and ownership? That's your nut right there. No need for a day job, perhaps, at that point. Grow out of the fourplex thing quickly. You need more units under management per property. That's how you gain economies of scale. You don't want to own 1,000 single-family houses. There's people that do, and they know how to do that quite well. I don't want to own 1,000 single-family houses unless they're given to me for free. I'd rather own 1,000 units across maybe 5 or 10 properties, because I've got properties that are 100 doors per unit or 200 doors per unit. So you're going to grow into that kind of stuff. If you own 1,000 single-family homes in fourplexes, it's very management intensive. It's very risky upon vacancy. So the multifamily market, Tasha, is 1 to 4 units and then 5 and up. I would do one deal at 1 to 4 units. I've already said make it a 4-unit property. And then for the rest of your career, once you've got the experience on how to operate that fourplex, I do nothing but 5 and ups.
Awesome. Sweet. All right, Peter, well, I'm stuck with one Q&A this week just to start us off in that way. That's all I got today. We did talk briefly before the show about trying to gamify the show a bit more.
Yeah.
And having you work in some of the words. I don't think you worked in any of the words, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I had to do that. I thought that was going to be a separate...
that could be a separate segment.
What? Give me the words right now.
So it was fiduciary.
Fiduciary. I wonder, what was the second word?
Exemplary.
I hope that this podcast is a good exemplary for my daughter, because I'd like her to learn something.
Wonderful. And kerfuffle.
I was at Frank's Deli today. I had the kerfuffle sandwich with extra mayo and pickles.
Fantastic. All right.
I didn't try to work in those words.
Yeah, no,
all.
but this is excellent. I think this is a good way to start off.
You know what this reminds me of is that meme where the person's talking about fitness and they want to lose weight. Mm-hmm. And fitness, I don't know about fitness. And then the next picture is them eating a pizza and they're like, I fit this whole pizza in my mouth. That's what this just reminded me of.
Yeah. So.
Thanks, George.
Cool. Thank you, Peter. Have a wonderful week, and
You
I'll
too.
see you next time.